All right, let's just jump right into this explainer, because we're tackling a massive topic today. Humanity's long, desperate, and, let's be honest, mostly failed search for the secret to a longer life. I mean, for thousands of years, we have been absolutely obsessed with figuring out how to stop the clock. We've looked literally everywhere. But, as it turns out, we might have been looking in the entirely wrong places.
Just look at the sheer contrast here. On one side, you've got our massive, incredibly complex human efforts to halt aging. We have literally built ancient temples hoping gods would just hand us immortality. We've swallowed experimental pills, endured these crazy severe diets, and even resorted to freezing our own bodies, just crossing our fingers that future science will thaw us out and fix us up. And then on the other side, while we've been doing all of that, a quiet, colorful little insect just drifting through shafts of light in the rainforests of Central and South America, well, it's already solved the exact aging problem that has defeated literally every human civilization in history.
Now, to really appreciate just how wild this is, you got to understand normal butterfly biology. You know, most butterflies, they only get about 2 to 4 weeks of adult life. That's it. That is all the time evolution has given them. Just long enough to flutter around, find a mate, lay some eggs, and then they disappear. But then there's this group, known as the heliconius genus. These boldly colored tropical butterflies, the ones famous for those striking wing patterns, they defy this standard entirely. They don't just live a little bit longer. They fundamentally break the rules of their own biological clock.
So a standard butterfly hovers right around that 28-day mark, right? And the Dione juno, which is a really close relative of our subject, survives for just 14 days. But look at this massive 25-fold difference when we get to the heliconius huthsoni. It boasts a maximum lifespan of 348 days. Guys, that is a mind-bending lifespan gap between two species that actually share a recent common ancestor. To put that into perspective, imagine if one group of humans naturally lived to be 80, and then another group practically right next door lived to be 2,000 years old. Like, that is the scale of what we're looking at here.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that they aren't just living longer, they are living fully. It's not like they're just dragging out the end of their lives in some fragile state. No, they are actively reproducing until their very last days. And incredibly, they are maintaining their physical strength without any obvious decline. They are vigorous, they're healthy, and they are completely turning what we think we know about getting older totally upside down. Section 1. The pollen hypothesis, or a dietary red herring. For a really long time, this longevity absolutely baffled the scientific community. You see, most butterflies survive purely on nectar, which, is essentially just pure sugar. But the heliconius is totally unique. It's the only butterfly in the world known to actually eat pollen as an adult, using their saliva to extract amino acids and lipids. So, the initial assumption was super straightforward. Better food just equals a longer life, right? Well, Dr. Jessica Foley, a really dedicated researcher at Tufts University, she wasn't satisfied with that simple answer. She spent 6 years meticulously studying these incredible butterflies across rainforests in Panama, Costa Rica, and Colombia. She suspected there was a much deeper mystery at play here than just a healthy diet of pollen. So, to find out, she designed a massive, highly controlled experiment studying 28 different heliconia species to finally separate their diet from their baseline biology.
And this is where the story takes a seriously fascinating turn. Dr. Foley's team completely stripped the pollen out of the butterfly's diet in a controlled environment. Now, if pollen was the magic longevity pill, these butterflies should have quickly aged and died just like their short-lived relatives. But guess what? Even without their superfood, even completely deprived of those extra amino acids and lipids, the heliconius still dramatically outlived their relatives by nearly 3 weeks.
So this definitively proved that the lifespan extension wasn't merely some dietary advantage. The secret is written deep into their biology. It's literally woven into their DNA, something that evolution carefully built into them over millions of years of adaptation out in the rainforest. And finding out they had a genetic advantage? Well, that was actually only the first shock.
Section 2. The grip strength test. Defying muscular decline.
Okay, so muscular decline is one of the most universal, completely unavoidable signs of aging across the entire animal kingdom. As time passes, humans lose their grip strength, mice lose it, standard insects lose it. It's just a biological fact of life. So, to test this, researchers built this tiny, custom device to measure exactly how hard a butterfly can grip. On the left, we see the short-lived relative, the Dione juno. And exactly as you'd expect, by the end of its life, it was pulling 25% less than it had at its physical peak. It was visibly aging.
But on the right, when they tested the long-lived heliconius hecali near the very end of its unusually long life, the results were entirely different. An aged heliconius had onto the testing device just as strongly as a young one.
0. Literally 0. That is the amount of measurable deterioration researchers found. Its body had not weakened in the slightest. Its muscles hadn't deteriorated at all. By every single physical measure the scientists could track, this was an organism that was aging without actually declining.
Dr. Foley noted that, quote, they don't seem to show any sign of weakening with age. Just take a second to think about that. Those words represent one of the absolute most stunning biological bombshells in recent years. I mean, for a scientist who studies aging, finding a creature that simply does not weaken as time passes is basically akin to finding magic in the real world.
Section 3. Unlocking Human Aging, the fast track to longevity.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering why a butterfly in Panama matters for human beings. The answer is that at a foundational molecular level, humans and butterflies actually share incredibly similar biological mechanisms. Things like cellular maintenance, energy metabolism, and crucially, DNA repair. They work much the same way in us as they do in them. Normal aging is basically step 1 here. DNA damage just simply accumulating over time until the body starts to break down. But step 2 shows what happens in remarkably long-lived species. We're talking creatures like naked mole rats, bowhead whales, and now the heliconius butterfly. Scientists actually believe this butterfly has evolved enhanced, hyper-efficient mechanisms to repair that DNA damage much faster than it can accumulate, effectively stopping the physical decline of aging right in its tracks.
And here's the real game changer. To study longevity in a bowhead whale, scientists would literally need centuries. To study it in a naked mole rat, you're waiting decades just to see a single lifespan play out. But with the heliconius butterfly, researchers can study an entire lifetime, from birth to peak health to old age and death, in under 12 months. They can run complex experiments, test genetic interventions, and measure the outcomes at a pace that is absolutely impossible with a whale or a mole rat. It's a massive acceleration for anti-aging science. Because of this speed, Dr. Foley strongly believes that whatever hidden mechanisms are keeping these butterflies vigorous and physically unstoppable until their final days, well, they might be deeply relevant to healthy human aging. We are essentially looking at a potential biological switch. And because we share those fundamental cellular processes, learning exactly how this butterfly switch works could teach us how to flip our own.
Which really leaves us with this profound mystery to consider as we wrap up this explainer. What if the cure for human aging isn't something we have to invent in a pharmacy? What if the secret isn't an external pill at all, but rather an ancient evolutionary switch already sitting right there inside our own DNA, just waiting for us to figure out how to turn it back on?
We've spent centuries looking outward for the secret to a longer life, when the answer might have been drifting through a tropical forest the whole time. If this explainer changed your perspective on what aging is and what it actually has to mean for us in the future, make sure you subscribe, because what we dissect and explain next is just as extraordinary. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.